I'd been walking the same stretch of sidewalk for weeks, half out of habit, half out of something I didn't want to name. The laundromat was 2 blocks away, the cafe 3. But lately I found reasons to loop around her street, as if errands needed detours. Her window was always open, curtains shifting with the breeze. Sometimes I caught her watering the plants on the sill, sometimes reading with glasses perched halfway down her nose. She wasn't my neighbor exactly, she was my neighbor's aunt, staying with them after what I guessed was a messy divorce, though I never asked. Mid-40s, maybe older, though she carried herself like someone who'd stopped counting years. The first time she spoke to me, it was almost nothing. "You walk fast," she said, voice muffled behind the screen. I slowed, embarrassed, holding a tote of groceries. "Do I?" Her smile was the kind you half miss if you're not paying attention. "Faster than most." That was it. A throwaway comment. But after that, I caught myself listening for her. The cafe on the corner was where I usually stopped after work. They knew my order: black coffee, no sugar, no cream. Still, it felt different the day she stepped in ahead of me, setting her thermos on the counter. She ordered tea. Green. With honey. She glanced over her shoulder, noticing me in line. "You again," she said. "Routine," I answered, trying not to sound nervous. She tilted her head. "Or habit." I didn't know the difference anymore. We ended up sitting at separate tables, but near enough that when she pulled out a notebook, I could see the handwriting, quick, sharp, like she didn't waste words. My coffee cooled while I pretended to scroll my phone. Every so often, she'd look up, as if checking the time, and I'd glance away too late. I told myself I wasn't lonely. I had work. A small circle of friends. Evenings filled with podcasts or sketching. But the truth was in the pauses. The text I typed and deleted, the way I stretched a single errand just across her block, the way I folded and refolded the napkin when the silence got too long. Some nights, I'd sit on my balcony and watch the lights go out one by one across the street. Her window stayed lit later than most. I wondered what she was reading, or if she was just waiting for sleep. It happened one evening when I passed by again, the sky washed in that in-between blue. She was leaning on the sill, elbows propped, hair loose like she'd given up fighting it for the day. "You always pass by my window," she said, not accusing, not playful, just stating it. I stopped. My hands fumbled with the strap of my bag. For a second, I thought about pretending it was coincidence, the same line I'd used on myself. But her eyes didn't let me. They held me there, waiting. "Maybe I like the view," I said. The silence that followed was heavier than I expected. Not awkward, more like a pause in music, where the next note matters too much. She blinked once, slowly, then leaned back. "Careful," she said softly. "That sounds like something." I smiled, though my chest felt tight. "Maybe it is." That night, back in my apartment, I saw the glow of her window through the blinds. I didn't expect anything. I was already replaying her words in my head, hearing them stretch into meanings I wasn't sure she intended. Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Just 5 words. "Tomorrow, same time. Coffee?" I stared at it, thumb hovering, my breath caught somewhere between a laugh and a confession. Her text had surprised me more than I admitted. I told myself it was just coffee, nothing unusual. People meet for coffee all the time. But the truth was, I read it 3 times before I replied yes, as if I needed to be certain the words wouldn't disappear. The cafe was half empty when I walked in the next evening. She was already there, stirring her tea slowly, gaze fixed on the swirl of honey dissolving. She didn't look up right away. I stood for a moment, watching, until she finally lifted her head and smiled. Not wide. Just enough. "You came," she said. "Of course," I answered, though I wasn't sure she heard how much weight those 2 words carried. We sat across from each other. At first, we filled the air with easy details: her shift at the hospital, the neighbor's broken stair railing, the weather-threatening rain. But between each pause, something hung unspoken. My hand circled my mug, fingertips hot against the ceramic. Then she said, almost carelessly, "I don't usually meet people like this." "Not anymore." I tilted my head. "Like this?" Her lips curved, not quite into a smile. "On purpose." I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. She let the silence stretch until I thought it might snap, then added, "After my divorce, I got good at not being seen. Easier that way." Her eyes flickered away, to the window, where cars rolled by with headlights dim. I wanted to say something, anything, that didn't sound like pity. But all I managed was, "I don't think you're invisible." She laughed under her breath, almost startled by it. "You're young. You see everything." That line sat between us, the first real hint of the gap either of us wanted to name. My chest tightened. I wondered if she regretted inviting me, if I was already crossing into a space I shouldn't. She shifted, folding her napkin, fingers brushing the edge again and again. "You remind me of someone," she said finally. "Who?" "My son's friend. Years ago. He used to hang around the house, ask questions I didn't have answers to. He grew up. Got married." I swallowed, unsure if she meant it as a warning or a memory. "And me?" I asked carefully. Her gaze met mine, steady, searching. "You linger, too." The words sent a pulse through me. I wasn't sure if it was shame or something dangerously close to hope. We left the cafe together. Outside, the rain had started, light and hesitant. She fumbled with her umbrella, and I reached to help, my hand brushing hers. It was nothing, an accident, really, but the way she froze, the way her eyes flicked to where our fingers almost touched, made it feel like too much. Either of us spoke. We just stood there, sharing the cover of her umbrella, shoulders closer than they should have been. On the walk back, she kept her gaze ahead. I kept mine on the wet pavement, trying not to imagine what it would feel like if I reached for her hand. When we reached her building, she paused on the steps, umbrella dripping between us. For a moment, she looked like she might say something, but instead, she only gave me a small nod. "Thank you for walking with me," she said softly. I nodded back, throat tight. "Anytime." Her eyes lingered a second longer than they needed to. And then she turned, disappearing into the glow of the stairwell. Later that night, I couldn't stop replaying it. The brush of her hand. The way she said "you linger too." I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The next few days blurred. Work, errands, the quiet of my apartment. But underneath it all, I was waiting. Waiting to pass by her window. Waiting for another message. It came late, almost midnight. "Just tea tomorrow?" I answered too fast. "Yes." Her kitchen smelled faintly of chamomile when I stepped inside. The window was open, rain dripping faintly from the gutter. She was barefoot, hair pulled back, glasses slipping down her nose. "You don't mind chamomile, do you?" she asked, pouring hot water into two mismatched mugs. "No," I said, though the word caught in my throat. We sat at the small table, knees brushing under the wood. Her cat jumped onto the counter, tail curling, as if it knew how strange the scene already was. She spoke lightly at first, hospital shifts, neighbors arguing about parking, her niece coming to stay next week. But every so often, her voice dipped, like she was checking if I'd flinch. "You're quiet tonight," she said. I shrugged, fingers tracing the rim of the mug. "Just listening." Her gaze lingered. I couldn't tell if she liked that or not. Halfway through, the front door opened. Voices, her sister's laugh, the shuffle of bags. Her aunt. My neighbor. She stiffened. I could almost feel the air change. "Hide your cup," she whispered, half joking, half serious. I slid the mug toward the sink, heart beating faster than it should. When her sister poked her head in, we were sitting across the table, hands folded, like nothing unusual. "Oh," her sister said. "Didn't know you had company." "Just tea," she answered smoothly. "Late night." The sister gave me a quick nod before retreating. Still, the interruption lingered like smoke in the room. After the door closed again, silence. She exhaled, long and slow. This is complicated. I wanted to say I know. I wanted to ask if she regretted inviting me. Instead, I only shifted in my chair, fingers drumming softly against the wood. Her eyes followed the rhythm. Then she reached across the table, stilling my hand with hers. Just for a second. It was nothing. Just skin on skin. Warm, steady. But it set every nerve in me alight. She pulled back quickly, as if realizing it meant more than she wanted it to. We should. Her voice trailed off. Yeah, I said, though I didn't know what I was agreeing to. At the door, she handed me my coat. Our eyes caught either of us moving. The space between us narrowed, not enough to close, but enough to feel it. I saw her lips part slightly. I leaned forward, not much, just the hint of a shift. And then she blinked, stepping back, hand tightening on the doorframe. Good night. The word landed like a wall. I swallowed, forcing a nod. Good night. When the door shut, I stood there a long moment, listening to my own pulse. It wasn't a kiss. Not even close. But it felt like we'd leaned into something we weren't supposed to. And somehow, that was harder to walk away from. It happened on a bench. Not planned, not special. Just one of those evenings when the day had wrung us both out, and neither of us wanted to go inside just yet. The air was cool, the street lamp above us buzzing faintly. She carried her thermos. I carried nothing, hands restless in my pockets. We sat without speaking for a while. People passed by, dog walkers, someone on a bike, a couple laughing too loudly. Each one made me feel like we were exposed, even though no one looked at us twice. Finally, she said, I saw you the other night. Walking past again. I froze. I wasn't. Her eyes cut toward me, sharp but not unkind. You were. I let out a breath. Yeah. I was. The honesty hung there. She leaned back, staring at the dim glow of apartment windows across the street. Do you know how it looks? I looked at her profile, the tired strength of it, the faint crease near her brow. Like what? Her jaw tightened. Like you're waiting for me. My throat went dry. I didn't answer right away. The silence stretched. Her fingers twisted at the lid of the thermos, over and over. Finally, she whispered, I can't be somebody's mistake again. The words landed heavy. I wanted to tell her she wasn't, that she couldn't be, but I wasn't sure I had the right. So I said quietly, I don't think of you like that. She turned to look at me then. Her gaze held, longer than it should have, longer than I could stand. Something raw sat there, a mix of warning and wanting. I tried to laugh, but it came out thin. It's not like I have much else going on. Work, late nights, passing by your window like an idiot. Her lips curved slightly. You're too young to sound that tired. And you're too alive to sound this afraid. I shot back, before I could stop myself. She stilled. Then, softer. You don't understand what it costs to let someone in at this point. I felt the words settle in my chest. Heavy. Real. Maybe I don't, I admitted. But maybe I'd like to. Her hand shifted then, resting just inches from mine on the bench. Not touching. Just close enough to feel the heat. The street around us seemed to fade. My pulse was louder than the hum of the lamp. She looked away first, down the street where no one was coming. This is wrong, she murmured. I leaned slightly forward, voice barely there. Then why does it feel like the only thing that makes sense? Her breath caught. I heard it. Saw the way her shoulders lifted then fell. We sat in that suspended space, one heartbeat away from something neither of us could take back. Then she whispered, almost to herself, What are we doing? For 3 nights, her window stayed dark. No tea, no message. Just absence. I told myself she was busy, long shifts, family visits, maybe just needing space. But by the 4th night, my steps slowed outside her building, waiting for something, curtains to shift, light to spill, any sign she was still there. Nothing. When I finally saw her again, it wasn't how I expected. Broad daylight on the sidewalk, her arm linked with a man's. Mid-40s, too. His laugh carried, familiar in the way of someone who didn't have to earn her attention. She noticed me before he did. Her smile flickered, not reaching her eyes, before she looked away too quickly. He kept talking. I passed by, hands buried in my pockets, trying to look like I hadn't stopped breathing for a moment. That night, I didn't walk her street. Didn't even open my blinds. Instead, I sat at my desk, sketchbook open but blank. I typed a dozen words into my phone, none of them sent. Is he your ex? I didn't know. Does it mean something? 2 days later, she knocked on my door. Just once. Not loud. When I opened it, she looked tired, her hair pulled back, eyes shadowed like she hadn't slept much. Sorry, she said. I shouldn't have come. But she was already there, in my doorway, holding the frame like it was keeping her upright. I stepped aside. She didn't move. He's not, she began, then stopped. Her lips pressed tight, words swallowed. I waited. Finally, she shook her head. Forget it. It's late. And just like that, she turned, walking back down the hall. I watched her go, every step smaller until she disappeared around the corner. Back inside, my apartment felt too still. My tea cooled untouched. I typed one more message. You don't have to explain. Just tell me if you want me to stop. I didn't send it. I just left it there, glowing on my screen, unfinished. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. It was late when she finally knocked again. Not tentative this time. Just 2 short knocks, like she didn't trust herself to linger in the hall. When I opened the door, she was standing there in her coat, damp from rain. No umbrella. Hair sticking to her cheek. She looked at me like she'd been circling this moment for too long. Can I come in? She asked. I stepped aside without answering. The kitchen was dim, just the light over the stove. I handed her a towel, and she pressed it absently to her hair, staring at the counter instead of me. We stood in that silence for a long beat. The only sound was the hum of the fridge, the rain against the glass. Finally, she said, He's not my ex. Her voice was flat, almost tired. Just someone who still thinks he should be. I nodded. Okay. She looked up at me then, searching. That's all you're going to say? I shrugged, palms pressing against the edge of the counter. What else do you want me to say? Her breath caught, not from anger, but from something closer to fear. That you're not just passing by my window. The words landed like a stone dropped in still water. I let out a shaky laugh, softer than I meant to. I thought you already knew. Her eyes softened, just barely. And if I let you mean it? My chest tightened. Every scenario I'd imagined, her pulling away, me overstepping, the silence after, collapsed into this one fragile pause. I stepped closer, slow enough to give her time to move. She didn't. I don't want to be something you regret, I said. Her hand was on the counter, fingers curled loosely against the wood. I let mine rest just beside it. Not touching, but close enough the heat bridged the gap. You won't be, she whispered. We stood like that, breath, rain, the small hum of appliances, until it was almost unbearable. Then, without looking at me, she slid her hand over mine. A small gesture. Nothing anyone else would notice. But it felt like the center of everything. I didn't move. Didn't speak. And when she finally looked up, wet hair clinging to her face, she gave the faintest smile. Okay, she said. It didn't happen all at once. No sudden kiss in the rain, no confession that changed everything overnight. It was slower than that. Quieter. A week later, I saw her at the cafe again, green tea with honey, my black coffee, both of us sliding into the same table without needing to ask. Another night, she texted me at 8:47 p.m., bench, and we sat there side by side, our hands resting close enough that touching felt like second nature. Time passed. Some days were harder than others. She still pulled away sometimes, as if reminding herself she was older, that this could be complicated. And sometimes I doubted, wondered if I was chasing something that would never fully be mine. But then I'd find her thermos on my counter, or she'd bring me soup after a long day, or I'd catch her waiting for me at the window, not pretending anymore. The doubts softened. Not gone, just quieter. One Sunday morning, we ended up back on the bench. Same place, same angle under the street lamp. I handed her my coffee, and she wrinkled her nose before sipping anyway. Still bitter, she said. Still too sweet. I shot back, nodding at her tea. She smiled, tucking her hair behind her ear, and leaned just slightly against my shoulder. No one passing by looked twice. To them, it was nothing. But to us, it was everything. It wasn't perfect. We didn't live inside a storybook. She worked long shifts, I pulled late nights on deadlines, sometimes we missed each other entirely. But then there were the pauses that carried us through, folding a napkin between us, brushing shoulders in the kitchen, the silence where either of us felt alone anymore. That was enough. More than enough. I don't know when I stopped passing by her window on purpose. Maybe the night I realized I didn't have to. She was already waiting, light on, tea steeping, 1 cup extra. It's a small thing. Ordinary. But it's ours. And sometimes, when she catches me watching her across the table, she'll smile and whisper, "Careful. That sounds like something." And I'll answer, without hesitation this time, "It is. Ch2."